Hello everyone, and welcome to our live Q&A all on dermal rolling and some winter skin rejuvenation tips. These live recordings are a lot of fun because I warmly invite your questions. This is sort of like office hours, live Q&A. But first of all, just a big announcement. Thank you so much to all of you who have been following me on the School of Radiance podcast. Hey, Valerie, I see you, beautiful, radiant woman. Thank you, everyone, for supporting the show and continuing to purchase products on my skin shop because my skincare is finally here. This has been years in the making, and I was able to do it with the support of each and every one of you. So thank you. And I didn't have to work with investors that could have potentially told me, use this ingredient instead of that to compromise on quality, because as many of you know, quality is everything. So when you receive your product, which a number of you ordered, and we actually sold out of the foaming cleanser and the eye cream on its first run. Thank you, everybody. Don't worry, more is being made now. You will notice that the packaging itself is actually shrink wrapped to save on waste. The pump that it's in is a very reliable pump as well. So I did everything I could to keep waste down. So none of this fancy packaging or additional boxes. And I actually designed the labels myself. So this is a labor of love right here. Big thanks to everybody for helping make this dream come true. And in the product line, there is a fantastic foaming cleanser. There's an eye cream, sort of like eye gel, that does help to tighten some of the lines around the eyes. You will actually kind of feel the shrink wrap feeling when you put it on. There's a hyaluronic acid serum. There's a carbon 60 serum, which is a super potent antioxidant. I actually use that as my moisturizer today. I often do. It's quite hydrating. And then my sunscreen on over top. There's a light moisturizer and a heavy moisturizer. And also just want to give a shout out to the Recovery Spot Gel. For those of you who maybe have some breakouts, or like myself, I cook all my own food. And I like to use this on areas of the skin that might need a little extra support. So in case you're curious, like how to use these products, that's just kind of the quick run through. And the reason I'm mentioning them is because they're all preserved with something called colloidal silver. There's no parabens or phthalates or artificial fragrances in them. So they're going to be compatible with dermal rolling. And we need to keep this in consideration, because what basically dermal rolling does, or microneedling, is it creates little channels of injury in the skin to allow for the absorption of products to not just be absorbed topically, but actually transdermally, about 100 to 1,000 times deeper. So that's one of the benefits to microneedling, is it allows for deeper absorption of your products. The other thing is with the MR3 roller is that it goes deep enough to puncture the fibroblasts, which are responsible for making collagen and elastin, and also the melanocytes, which are responsible for making melanin or sunspots or age spots and things like that. So that's kind of like the quick and dirty, if you will, of why I've really enjoyed talking about microneedling and at-home dermal rolling for many years. Since I started in the industry in 2011, hands down, my clients with the best skin over the years do their dermal rolling about 2 to 5 times a week. And then you can kind of cycle into that the nights when you're not rolling, doing an at-home peel, doing retinol at home as well. And in my tutorials, I do teach you exactly how to do the rolling, because I can't exactly show every time I do a one-on-one or come on live and record here how to do it. But it's also not something I really want to teach how to do on YouTube, because I don't want people to purchase these lower quality rollers and use the wrong products and then say, oh, I saw you do it, and then I used all these things and then I had a reaction. Like, I don't have time for that. And I'm not for everybody. So what I want to do is just warmly open up any questions that you have about dermal rolling. And I'd love to kind of get into some of the details and some of the nuances between some of the rollers that you will see online and some of the protocols that you probably see floating around there. and also some of the options for in-clinic rejuvenation, especially this time of year. We are nearing the winter season. So if you're listening to this episode, like very current, you're up to date with all the episodes. And maybe if you're listening to this in the summertime, this isn't really going to apply because there are certain things that we want to do from a rejuvenation perspective in the clinic at different times of the year for different reasons. Like, say, for example, we have a tan or we're going to be having sun exposure. That's not always the best time to have rejuvenation for things like red acne scars, skin redness, broken capillaries on the face, and also pigmentation. So I'll open it up for questions here in the chat related to dermal rolling and also related to winter rejuvenation. And hello, Dawn, Enid, Eunice, everybody. Eunice is my mother. I'm so excited when my mom jumps on these live Q&A calls. She always gives me feedback. She'll say, oh, I felt like that was very, very insightful. Oh, maybe you should talk a little bit less about this. So it's kind of funny, the conversations we have. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, Stephanie, Tamara, and Valerie. I love you all so much. So grateful for each and every one of you here. And yeah, let me know your questions all on microneedling and rejuvenation tips. During this winter season, we're all excited to look our best this upcoming holiday because we're going to be having maybe some more photos taken, going to some more events, maybe seeing some friends and family members or even colleagues that you haven't seen in a while. And this is a time of year to really show up as your best version and leave that positive, lasting impression, and also practice that good etiquette because we are going to be mingling with people from different backgrounds and things like that. I did a previous episode on sort of like energy saving tips that are really helpful this time of year and not being so busy. And the reason why this is actually related to the topic of microneedling and dermal rolling, because the whole purpose of this is basically to create a controlled injury on the skin to then get those fibroblasts activated to make more elastin and collagen. And when you're stressed out a little bit, guess what happens? Your cortisol gets elevated. And with that, you can actually have an impact on your hormones, including estrogen. So when cortisol is elevated, estrogen drops. When estrogen drops, collagen and elastin do too. So the more cool, calm, and collected you are, the way you behave day in and day out will actually help with your longevity and slowing aging. All right, we have a couple of questions that have rolled in here. Great. Thanks, everybody. Valerie, what products and in what order do you apply after dermal rolling? This is an easy one. I used to recommend a copper peptide and then a vitamin serum after dermal rolling. And you will notice on my skin shop, sometimes I phase products out. There could be various reasons for that. And with the vitamin serum, it just wasn't able to be made for one reason or another. I think there was difficulty with getting a specific ingredient for the manufacturer of it. So I had to phase that out. It also kind of smelled a little bit and had a little bit of a yellow tinge. So I definitely have found some more suitable agents to use after dermal rolling. And again, the products that are in my skincare line are compatible after dermal rolling because they don't have any preservatives that we need to avoid. I've trialed this myself on my skin and just felt like my skin felt great. And historically, I recommended the copper peptide and the vitamin C serum, the soluble C. Those are still my current recommendations. So when we're doing things like dermal rolling in the evening, how you want to approach this is wash your face first, give your skin a good cleanse. So that could either be a double or triple cleanse with your cleanser. And take a little washcloth, like a dark cotton washcloth, and go over your hairline to remove any excess makeup or sunscreen, because sometimes we don't cleanse the hairline as well as we probably should because we don't want to get our hair wet. I know for me, when I wash my face and I get water in my hair between blows, it kind of makes my edges a little frizzy because I have super curly hair. So you always want to roll on clean skin. And then after you've finished your rolling, so dermal rolling your cheeks, your eyelids, your forehead, your nose, your lips, your neck, your chest, we can even dermal roll the inner arms. And yes, I do have some good biceps from strength training again, finally feeling super strong again. We can dermal roll our inner arms, our elbows, our hands, tops of the knees. You could even dermal roll over your abdomen or say some type of scar like a C-section scar. So you dermal roll and then you apply your products. So historically, I've recommended the copper peptide, then the soluble C, and then the vitamin serum. So I mentioned that the vitamin serum is no longer a recommendation because I can no longer get it, and I was going to phase it out anyways, in all honesty, so divine timing. But dermal roll, copper peptide, soluble C are definitely what you can apply afterwards. Just an FYI that the copper peptide and the soluble C, they don't really have like this luxurious, sophisticated, smooth application afterwards. They're very much like raw products. They're not going to make a very good daytime product because they feel a little bit tacky and sticky. So that's kind of one of the benefits of the products that I have created. So after dermal rolling, you could do the carbon 60 serum, the hyaluronic acid serum, and then follow that up with your light moisturizer or your heavy moisturizer. And then what's cool about that is you can also use those same products during the day. So I'm always looking for ways to kind of streamline what we're doing. But the copper peptide, it is a powerhouse ingredient. If you can add that extra serum to the mix, copper peptide is particularly helpful for the skin and its function, and also for things like pigmentation. So that's still going to be a recommendation. Vitamin C after dermal rolling is also good. And the soluble C vitamin C serum that you can use after dermal rolling, again, that's not going to be the same as, say, like your daytime antioxidant serum, because the other antioxidant serums that I have on my skin shop, they have more of like the smooth consistency, which feels much better on the skin during the day. So does that fully answer your question, Valerie? So cleanse the skin, do your dermal rolling. You can stick with my previous recommendations for copper peptide, then soluble C, and then you can layer on either the light moisturizer or the heavy moisturizer that I've created too. The eye cream is also no problem to apply after dermal rolling as well. It's kind of like a eye serum, and if you were doing your copper peptide and soluble C, you could simply do cleanse, roll, copper peptide, soluble C, and then your heavy or light moisturizer on over top. And just a reminder, we're only dermal rolling in the evening because we want those little micro channels to actually close up while we're sleeping. And I don't recommend dermal rolling if you know you're going to be having a lot of sun exposure the next day. But I personally like dermal rolling the night before, say, I have an event, because my skin actually just looks extra plump. And this is basically from the micro injury that we're causing. When we create a little bit of a controlled injury like this, it creates just like the slightest amount of edema, which gives a little bit of like plumping to the skin. However, when you do your dermal rolling properly and with the right pressure, and it's paintbrush pressure, and I show you exactly how to do this in my tutorials. It's the only place I teach how to actually do your dermal rolling is in my seasonal tutorials. And you can join those at theschoolofradiance.com. They're a lot of fun. And in 7 weeks, I will teach you how to become your own skin pro, teaching you the how, what, why of your basic to more advanced layers as well, and seasonally specific rejuvenation, which I am going to highlight in this recording too. But if you do your dermal rolling incorrectly, the next day you might notice like some lines, or say, for example, you went too hard over your trachea, your clavicle, or even your sternum, you will have sort of a little extra redness. So that's why the technique is really important for when you're dermal rolling. One of the things that I've noticed in consuming content myself online, because my Instagram at Rachel Varga Official is very much like health and beauty focused, I get all these different ads for other companies' products and dermal rolling. And there are a couple of pretty notorious influencers out there that are making their own rollers and have their own products. And I decided to do a little investigation on their protocols. And when I first started dermal rolling, I actually learned from one of the lead researchers who worked with Dr. Lance Setterfield. He basically wrote the Bible on dermal rolling. He's considered one of the godfathers of dermal rolling. There were 4 doctors, one in UK, one in South Africa, one in California, and one here on Vancouver Island, where I'm a 5th generation Islander. And they all kind of came up with it at once. And so I was able to actually see what the skin looks like in those who do dermal rolling consistently. And they just hands down, women and men aged 60 to 90 that have been consistent with dermal rolling for years have the best skin. Their pores are smaller, their skin is more plump and thicker, they have fewer fine lines and wrinkles, and they also had less pigmentation. So they would come to see me for rejuvenation, and I didn't really have to do as much for them, because in between their rejuvenation, like lasers, injectables, and sometimes surgery, they were doing things to maintain the quality of their skin, to maintain their collagen and elastin, and keep their pigmentation lowered. So that's when I kind of came to realize that really the more that we do at home results in less of a need to do things in the clinic. And I like this approach because for long-term beauty, for longevity, it all starts with what we do day in and day out, with leading as pure of a lifestyle as possible, with biohacking your home, purifying your air, water, lighting, reducing exposure to electromagnetics, eating whole foods that are not inflammatory, and doing occasional detoxes and cleanses. So I'm in my sauna almost every night. And then also do things like parasite cleanses and take binders and things like that too, to basically keep our toxic bucket as empty as possible. And those who are healthier, in my experience, and have an emptier toxic bucket or less oxidative stress actually receive better outcomes from their rejuvenation. And I wrote a paper a couple years ago on oxidative stress status and its impacts on skin aging to actually create awareness with fellow medical aesthetics practitioners to identify if someone's oxidative stress status or level of inflammation is elevated, and to maybe not do rejuvenation on those days, because people who have autoimmune conditions or their toxic bucket is really full, I would go so far as to say that those types of patients in that category are going to be the ones that are going to have those side effects that you probably have seen on Facebook message boards and things like that, Reddit and all of that. So in an effort to enhance patient safety and better outcomes, that's why I wrote that paper. It was actually a safety piece to create awareness. And also for all of you to have me put in a medical journal, what are some of the biohacks that are going to make a difference? And it starts with purification. Instead of getting a fancy red light panel and doing this fancy biohacking gadget and that. So anyways, getting back to what I was seeing online from people who are talking about dermal rolling, who oftentimes are influencers, they're not practitioners themselves. It's just a good business idea for them to create their own roller and their own products. I took a look at their protocols, and their protocols were like 2 to 3 times a week with a roller that was actually too deep. And I did not love those protocols. Deeper is not better in regards to consistent dermal rolling, which ideally is 2 to 5 nights a week. Because when we go a little bit deeper, sometimes we want to, if say we're dealing with acne scarring. That's why I have the MR5 roller. That's specifically for acne scarring, but only about once a week. It's not necessary to go that deep. So the MR3 roller on my site is the one that can be used consistently. And more MR3s are coming in. They're on their way already because the Black Friday sale. We sold out, which was exciting. And I know a number of you were able to take advantage of savings. All right, Enid. Hey, Enid, great to see you here. Is dermal rolling completed at night to help with the healing time? Yes, I did briefly mention this. We want those little channels that we're creating from the teeny tiny needles here to close up, so that the next day when we wash our face, we put our cosmetic creams on, our sunscreen and our makeup, that those little tiny micro injuries, those little tiny channels have closed up. And you might have heard of something called microcoring. Microcoring is different from microneedling or dermal rolling. So typically dermal rolling is something that is done at home with the right guidance, with the right products. And then microneedling is oftentimes what you'll hear more of in the clinic. And oftentimes in a clinic, they'll recommend a package of 6 microneedling sessions a month apart, maybe have some PRP applied after that. I'm a huge fan of just doing it at home. Save yourself a ton of money, buy your roller, buy the products, learn how to do it correctly in the tutorials, and do this 2 to 5 times a week. It's kind of like living healthily once a month. It doesn't make a lot of sense for me, to be talking about microneedling and only doing it once a month in the clinic. 2 to 5 times a week is what the protocols have shown us and what I've seen long-term impacts to be. So instead of maybe doing microneedling in the clinic, what you could do instead is actually in the clinic focus on more energy-based technologies. So maybe once a month for a couple of months that we can use certain technologies to target the reds and browns in the skin, especially in the wintertime once your tan has faded, because certain laser technologies that are actually really bright light, it's actually intense pulse light. It's not a true laser because it's kind of this broadband light. The light is actually attracted to reds and browns in the skin, and it can't tell the difference between if you have a tan. And in fact, if you were to have this in the spring, summer, when you have a tan, you could run into some problems. And one of the things to note with winter rejuvenation with intense pulse light that I just mentioned, it's actually not for every skin type. So I do have to be careful what I say for free online here. I can't make general statements as to, this technology is great for everybody. You won't even hear me say that this skincare product is great for everybody or this diet is great for everybody, because we are all bio individuals. And the more pure you are, body, mind, spirit, energy, and your oxidative stress status, the better you're going to be able to tune into yourself as towards which foods your body is really craving and wanting. And for me, it's a lot of protein. And I've been doing really well with a very high protein diet for the last year or so for my body composition and also putting on muscle. Quick little note here, lift or be lifted. One of the things that we experience as women as we age is something called sarcopenia. And this is literally a wasting of our muscles. So if you're walking the dog and you're doing gardening, I hate to break it to you, but that isn't quite enough. You do need to get those weight-bearing exercises. And one of the things that I do is I actually lift heavy and I lift to failure. And this has actually changed my body composition in just a couple of months. Finally feeling strong again after many years of not being able to exercise. I'm so grateful to be able to move my body. So depending on what you've experienced in your life, if you have any injuries, just do the best you can. But that weight-bearing exercise to put on muscle is also going to be really supportive for your bone health as well. We want to have this pressure on our bones to actually make more bone cells. Quite simply put, if we're not putting enough resistance on our body, our bones will become more brittle, and osteoporosis is also something we want to be aware of as we age. Not to mention, having more muscle is really supportive for your metabolism, your hormone production, and all sorts of good things. Now, getting into some of the other things that we can do in the clinic, and my position, I'm okay with being a little bit controversial here. I know a number of you listen are also practitioners, which is great, but I'm always going to give it to you straight to the best of my ability. So instead of maybe doing microneedling in the clinic, you could maybe do some laser rejuvenation from a resurfacing perspective. So we can do actually microneedling with radio frequency in the clinic to go a little bit deeper than we would with microneedling at home and deliver some energy into the skin to then elicit a micro injury, which then triggers more collagen and elastin to help the skin be thicker and plumper. And then we can also use certain technologies that utilize laser beams of energy to, instead of a needle creating a little channel of injury into the skin, we're actually using a laser beam to do that. So they both kind of have different applications. So I'm not going to make a blanket statement as lasers are good for everybody, because they might not necessarily be good for everybody, depending on level of inflammation, oxidative stress, but they're also more expensive. So depending on your budget, I would say that good skincare, dermal rolling at home, adding in a couple of peels and retinols, I think is a really good cost-effective approach and is going to be supportive of your skin health in general. One of the trends that I've seen since about 2018 are my patients asking me, and also clients across the globe, because I started doing Zoom calls for consults a long time ago before anyone really knew what Zoom was. And the reason why I did that was, here I am, this young 20-something-year-old nurse on Vancouver Island, a small island on the west coast of Canada. People were flying to come and see me from across the globe: France, Germany, Dubai, New York, California, Toronto, all over the place. So I needed to figure out a way to provide helpful information. Then I started to show up online on YouTube, creating frequently asked question videos, and people started to find me. And that's kind of one of the things that you want to look for in a practitioner is, are you feeling like when you go into a clinic, are you just being rushed in and out? Or do you actually feel cared for? And this is one of the things that's kind of irked me about the medical aesthetics industry, especially with a lot of clinics getting bought by these corporate hedge funds, is that the quality of care has really gone down. So myself as a teacher, as a trainer, as a presenter, privately, and then also for other companies that I teach with, I'm really helping to shift that to ensure that the medical aesthetics industry is not going anywhere, but just to elevate things so that you get the best care possible. So just a little kind of nugget of information there. It's a good idea to actually go to a practitioner who is showing up online, because what that does is it actually shows confidence. And so if you're tuning in and you are a practitioner, you can send me an email, info@theschoolofradiance.com, or head on over to buildingyourbeautybrand.com and hang out with my colleague Christina to, help encourage you with showing up online. If you are a practitioner, you offer great services, but you know how to have people find you. And it does start with you being a little bit brave and showing up. Showing up online and doing these videos, it I think actually takes more energy than you all realize. But at the end of the day, I feel good knowing that you are getting positive information that's going to be constructive to not only how you look now, but also for how you look for many years to come. So the winter time is a time when we're inside a little bit more. We're kind of cozying up. It gets dark a little bit earlier. And this is a great time to maybe even switch up your circadian rhythm just a little bit. Do your self-care and your skincare and dermal rolling a little bit earlier. Go to bed a little bit earlier. Make sure that you're capitalizing on that restorative sleep, because you could do all the dermal rolling and skincare and rejuvenation in the world, but if you're not sleeping enough, then it's kind of all going to be in vain. Recovery is one of the most important parts of achieving and maintaining long-lasting beauty. And for one of you here, you've sort of been my muse for what this beautiful, radiant woman is like. And I'll just kind of describe her, and you know who you are. I'm not going to point you out here. But basically, we want to have this peace to us. We want to have this warm, beautiful energy to us. We want to be balanced and grounded in our life, with our families, with what we're doing to kind of give us purpose in life, having hobbies, having fun, getting outside, and just in general being super grounded. So that's why I think doing things like just your basic skincare routine, dermal rolling, make sure you're sleeping, keep tuning into the show here, are going to help to foster these really good daily habits so that you continue to show up as a more beautiful woman here in the world, or man, because 25% of listeners are the gents as well. And so we're in a really interesting time in regards to science and research and longevity. You've probably heard of certain speakers out there claiming that they're going to live to 180. I mean, it's hard to know, right? Because life happens, things happen, right? And I think we really are finding that in order to not be lifted, lift or be lifted, I made that reference earlier with getting your muscle on, but also having your mind continuing to work properly, having your hormones balanced, and just being able to show up in your personal and professional life and do the things that bring you joy. I've worked with a number of clients actually in their 90s. And, one of them in particular, she wanted to start doing horseback riding. And she would say to me, a number of my friends in their 60s, they keep complaining about their knees and their hips. So what I want you to do for like this mindset of radiance and beauty is to be present and also just be grateful for what you have in front of you. Be grateful for absolutely everything and look for the beauty in your life. So I'm looking at a beautiful garden here. Yes, it's, the leaves have fallen, but there's still beautiful, winter blossoms and foliage. Look for the beauty around you and really catch yourself when you start to complain a little bit, because the reason I'm mentioning this in regards to beauty is when we have a more calm, peaceful, happy demeanor, guess what? We look happier and more pleasant. If we're, caught up with the woes of the world and something happening over here and, tough stuff happening in the family life, like you have to really stay focused on things that are bringing positivity in your life. Because when you're focusing on something, just notice what you're doing with your face. If you're focusing on something, are you, intensely furrowing your eyebrows, or are you biting down and clenching your jaw? Because when you're focusing, you might not know you're doing this. This is the component of self-mastery, of really being not hyper observant, but being very observant about what you do and very intentional in how you move and behave in the world. If you're really focusing on something and you're furrowing your brows, or you're talking to somebody and you're furrowing your brows, relax your demeanor. If you're focusing on something, you're accomplishing tasks, and you notice that you're biting down, what happens is you can tell someone who's stressed out. I mean, especially around this holiday time, that can happen. Don't be in a rush all the time. Listen to my previous episode on some energy tips. But just notice if you are clenching. This is key. I see this in pretty much everybody in the clinic around this time of year, especially those women who are perimenopausal and menopausal, because the brain is going through so many shifts. You're trying to balance your personal and professional life. But the wider the jaw is, actually the more masculine a feminine face can become. So that's actually why, from a beauty perspective, to keep your face relaxed and to not be biting down and clenching is great, so that your masseter muscles here don't project too far outwards. And also just don't chew gum either, because it can make your jowls bigger. So just a couple of little tips there. I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but I don't know. I just felt like kind of dripping those little positive insights in there just to support you and keep you on track. I'll open it up for any final questions here. So to kind of summarize, dermal rolling, easy to do at home. It can be intimidating when you first start it because you don't know what to do. So join my tutorials. It's the only place where I teach you exactly how to do it. I take you in my restroom and I teach you your basics first. I do not have buy this dermal rolling video and off to the races, because you have to actually stabilize your skin first, which comes through being diligent with just a basic skincare protocol for about 2 weeks. So cleansing the skin in the AM and PM, moisturizing the skin in the AM, PM, using your sunscreen in the AM, even when it's darker outside because of these blue lights, and 10 minutes here running that errand, 15 minutes here driving to this place, exercising. Runners, if they work out and they don't put sunscreen on, they actually get what's called the runner's face, and runners actually age much faster than people who aren't. And I think it's related to also running all the time can result in an elevation of cortisol and oxidative stress. That's actually why you'll see long distance runners compared to sprinters. Sprinters actually look better and they have more muscle to them. And so if you do work out in the AM, do make sure you use your sunscreen. And then in that first 2 weeks, when you're stabilizing your skin, adding in some gentle exfoliation 2 to 5 times a week, even if you feel like your skin is sensitive. One of the reasons why your skin is probably sensitive is because you're not taking care of your skin in the way it wants to be taken care of. And this actually was highlighted to me when I first started in the industry in 2011. And at a first meeting with a patient, they would say, I have dry, sensitive, red skin. What can I do about it? Well, here's a basic protocol: cleanser, moisturizer, sunscreen, scrub. Do this for 2 weeks, come back, then we'll do something else. And in that 2-week time, when I would take their before photo and 2 weeks later, guess what? That redness started to fade. The skin looked a little bit more glassy, and they would report that their skin felt smoother and felt less dry. So simply put, do the basics: cleanse, moisturize, sunscreen, scrub, 2 weeks before doing things like dermal rolling. And just a little tip for the copper peptide and soluble C, which is the vitamin C. Sometimes people can be sensitive to vitamin C. It's not very common, but I have come across this in my experience since 2011. So I do like when you're integrating actives into your daily skincare routine, like a vitamin C, is to just do it like once a week. Just get your skin and the receptors used to this active component. So the copper peptide soluble C would be like a twice a week, 2 nights a week for 2 weeks, just getting your skin used to that. So stabilize the skin for 2 weeks, integrate actives 2 nights a week for 2 weeks, and then start your dermal rolling with just twice a week at night. And then depending on how your skin is doing, the next week you might be able to bump it up to 3. The next week after that, or 2 weeks after that, maybe bump it up to 4, and eventually getting up to 5. And just a little kind of like troubleshooting here is, if you are doing your dermal rolling at home, which I can encourage, that if you are feeling like a little red, dry, and irritated that night, just simply don't roll. Just lean into your basic protocol. So dermal roll when you feel like the skin is feeling good. And the same thing goes with your peels and your retinols at home. You don't want to be doing too many things at once. We want to be doing actives like dermal rolling, like peels, like retinol, when the skin is actually feeling pretty good. And then just one final tip here. If you are doing some rejuvenation on your skin over the winter season, and for all of you who have a one-on-one with me in the past, you know that I've given you kind of like what a plan would look like, different things, cost, downtime, as well as if you haven't had a one-on-one. I am opening up some time, especially over the holidays, so this is a good time to book your one-on-one with me. But I give you kind of that plan, what to do, where to go, and give you that ongoing support too. So with rolling and peels and retinols, you typically want to avoid anything active for about a week before doing anything in the clinic. So just a little pointer there for some of you who are going to be doing some winter skin rejuvenation using light like IPL, or resurfacing with lasers. You do just kind of want to follow a basic protocol for about a week leading up to your rejuvenation. And then after your rejuvenation, always follow the recommendation from your provider, because this is not medical advice. This is educational information only. If you think you have a medical condition, you must seek the guidance of a licensed physician. So once your skin is kind of recovered after doing something in the clinic, give it about a week after that to then start incorporating your dermal rolling and your retinols and your peels again. So that was just like a little kind of pre-post tip there for you all as well. All right. Well, no more questions, Enid. Okay, thank you. You are very welcome. My absolute pleasure. It's great having a number of you here on live for this recording, all on kind of what you need to know about microneedling, some tips to save you some money, some tips to give you more longer lasting impacts, and also some nuances around dermal rolling, some of the advanced things that you're doing at home with your skin cycling, like with peels, like with retinols, in conjunction with your laser skin rejuvenation, because the fall winter is known as laser skin rejuvenation season. The same thing is actually going to go if you are wanting to do injectables. Just an FYI, to not use anything active on the skin for about a week before. If you're, say, doing neuromodulators or fillers or biostimulators, kind of the same thing. You want the skin to be in really good shape before you start poking needles in it or having laser beams happen and occur on the skin. So just a little tip there. Valerie, how do you store your dermal roller? Well, the MR3 was a great question. The MR3 that I offer, more is on the way, don't you worry, comes in a case like this. Okay, so this is how it's stored. I like to store it in a drawer. I don't like to store it on my countertop because you might have fur babies or people or kids that might knock it off the counter. And if your roller drops, then you're going to bend the needles. And for cleaning it, I do actually show you exactly how to clean it in the tutorials. It's really simple though. You run the roller under water. I actually clean my roller every single time I use it with a little bit of antibacterial soap. You can also do a bit of like a deeper cleanse on the roller. You can soak it in like a styrofoam cup with alcohol, once a week. You can also use a denture cleaner if you want, and those little enzymes are going to break down debris. However, with the way that I like to talk about utilizing dermal rolling is that you are rolling on clean skin. So one of the other things about the protocols that I see with dermal rolling is recommendations to do products before rolling. And I think that you're just going to be less likely to have products and things and microbes accumulate on your roller if you're rolling on clean skin. And that's what I learned a long time ago as well, was to do the dermal rolling on clean skin. And then your products afterwards. There is one exception to this, however, and that is if we are dermal rolling the body, which I teach you in tutorials, because for the body, you do want to put, oh, by the way, the Dermalac product. The Dermalac product on my skin shop is like a body peel, and it has a little bit of lactic acid, which is the only time we actually want to put this on the skin first, is because if you were to do your dermal rolling and then put this lactic acid product on afterwards, it will sting a little bit. So for the body, you do the Dermalac, you roll, and then you apply the AC&E body oil. And the Dermalac, if you are feeling like your skin is really dry right now, especially this time of year, like on your arms and on your calves and things like that, before going to bed, do your skincare, do a little scrub, and then put that Dermalac all over the body and then your skincare on the face. And you're just going to wake up with just beautiful, glassy, smooth, hydrated feeling skin. Like it will have a little bit more of a shine to it, because the lactic acid has chemically exfoliated. So some chemicals are good for us. Remember, not all chemicals are bad. Air is a chemical, water is a chemical. Anything that has a combination of two atoms, basically, so oxygen and hydrogen coming together is what creates water. So that's why when you see chemical free on packaging, it's totally bogus and it's just greenwashing. The other thing that I do want to mention is with the recent Black Friday sales or holiday sales, or anytime there's a big sale on products, if you're seeing discounts on things that are around that sort of like, I would say even more than 30%, that's just going to tell you right off the bat that that product is overpriced anyways. So just a little aside there, because I just had a Black Friday sale. It was 20% off site-wide. I actually can't do more of a sale than that because I don't hike the prices up on my products. And these are, expensive products for me to buy as well. So if you're seeing sales for 70 to 80%, there's two things. Number one, that product is probably marked up an obscene amount and it's a cheap product to make. Number two, you could actually be getting a fake product or a product that maybe was stored in non-ideal situations and things like that, and they just wanted to blow through it. The fake product situation with rollers, it's actually really good to mention, is huge. So please do not buy anything you're putting on or in your body from these third-party auction websites that you feel like if you go on the website, you might get a computer virus too. So it's good to know like who you're getting things from. The people behind the companies, that's really important, because not all rollers are created equally. These ones are made in California. They've been made since the 90s in a proper facility, actually come sterile. And a lot of other rollers are made in the Orient. And up close, the needles aren't needles, they're blades. And they can often also be an alloy, so a mixture of different metals, which is awful. And lower quality rollers are going to be more prone to, say, rusting and things like that. So just because you see a roller that's like $20, look close on the packaging. It's probably going to say single use or discard after 5 to 20 uses. the rollers that I have are like a 2-year product. Clean them. I teach you exactly how to do all of that stuff, how to use it in the tutorials. But you pay for what you get. But I mean, that's not always the case, but it's good to know the quality of the product that you're using. And so don't be kind of like, ooh, bright shiny object, that dermal roller. I heard Rachel talk about dermal rolling. I'm going to get this one. It's on sale. It's like $20 or $60. I've even seen low quality rollers at that $60 to $100 mark, and they're all made in the Orient. So who knows actually what that metal is. So you know, when you shop on my skin shop, all the products are pre-vetted by me. So just a little aside there on quality definitely matters. And, you know, I'm always taking that into account because your trust and ongoing support means the world for me. And again, big thanks to each and every one of you for being a part of the Always Radiant skincare launch. It's finally here. It took a little bit longer than I thought it was going to take to get this rocking and rolling. But excited that it's here and love the products. It's so funny. I was doing research and development over the summer and I kind of ran out of my batch. So I went back to some other products I was using that are great products still on my skin shop. But boy, could I tell the difference between going back to things that, you know, I've worked with for so long. I worked with like 15 different medical grade skincare brands on my skin shop, have for many years. But it's just like the cleanliness of the products I've created, the way, just how good they feel on the skin and how good they make my skin feel. It became very obvious to me. So thank you, everybody, for your ongoing support and trust. Valerie says, congratulations. Thank you. Jennifer, thank you. Happy holidays to you too. Hey, Stephanie, saw you just joined here. So for those of you who just tuned in, don't worry, this replay is going to be on the School of Radiance podcast. Don't forget to share this episode, subscribe to the show, and stay connected on Instagram. And they're pretty active posting some stuff to kind of keep you on point and dialed in as well at Rachel Varga Official. And I'll see you again right here on the School of Radiance podcast. And if you want to learn how to do dermal rolling, definitely join my next tutorial. Join the fun, and in 7 weeks, I will teach you how to become your own skin pro. Love you all so much. See you again right here on the School of Radiance podcast.